Hello, this is Lew White, reading from one of the articles on the Ambassador package, available from TorahZone.net and downloadable from LambLegacyFoundation.com. This is going to be the first of 4 pages. Page 1. The title, Appointed Times 2019. This is Yahusha's redemption plan. This month is the beginning of months for you. It is the first month of the year for you. Exodus 12, verse 2. Abib, the ripe grain harvest. The first moon or month of the year. Exodus 12, verse 2. It begins in 2019 at sunset on the Roman month of April 5th, and it ends sunset April 6, 2019. The first day of the first month in the spring of the new year. The sun is at or very near the equatorial region. Plants are beginning to bud, the sign of a new cycle. Scripture mentions only summer and winter, Kayetz and Koref. Kayetz is summer and Koref is winter. The next thing that happens after that is the memorial of Yahusha's death. Now that is referred to as Pesach, the Passover. He is the Passover. But it has a time on the 14th of the first moon, beginning at sunset on the 14th as it begins. Sunset April 18th, which is the beginning of the 14th day of the first month, remembering that he died on the 14th. And a preparation day is allowed for the first day of matzah, which is the 15th, where he was in the tomb, actually. Yahusha was impaled later during the daylight part of the 14th of the first moon. He arranged a memorial with his Talmudim, that's his disciples, the evening before the arrival of the 14th. His blood made animal blood obsolete. The animal blood was the old covenant. Yahusha is our Passover, one offering for all. It nears sunset on April 18th in the year 2019. Now this is from the scriptures. It says, quote, on the 14th day of the first month, between the evenings, is the Passover to Yahuwah, unquote. That's Leviticus or Uikra 23, verse 5. Our Passover died late on the 14th of the first month. Pesach is often used as a general term describing the entire period, including the 7 days of matzah. Our lamb was slain on the 14th of the first moon. The next thing that happens at sunset on the 14th, beginning the 15th, is matzah, or unleavened bread, for 7 days. We rest from all servile work at the beginning of that festival, or remembrance, on the first and the last days. The first day has a full moon, and we rest from servile work, beginning at sunset, April 19, through sunset, April 20th, 2019. Quote, on the 15th day of this month is the festival of matzah to Yahuwah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, unquote. Leviticus 23, verse 6. Leaven signifies men's teachings, which we throw out from our thinking, preparing us to receive the good seed of Torah 50 days later at Shavuot. That word we'll define later. It means weeks. We also commemorate our deliverance from Egyptian slavery and death of all unsealed firstborn males of men and animals. The Passover was eaten on this night, the beginning of the 15th of the first month, a night of vigil for the slaying of the firstborn and the great deliverance of Yisrael from Mitzrayim, from the land of slavery. For 7 days all Yisrael is to abstain from leavened bread. This applies to all immersed believers. The next thing that happens during the Feast of Matzah is a variable festival. It happens to be Firstfruits. Now this is a date that is usually observed as the 16th of the first month in the Hebrew calendar, but in reality it might be, it might not be, depending on when the Sabbath is during that week. The weekly Sabbath at sunset begins another observance. It's called Firstfruits. Now that day is always on the first day of the week during Matzah. It might occur the very next day. It could even, occur near the end, but it does slide around. So it could be different for each year. Now in 2019, that date is April 21st, 2019, and it's on the morrow, or in the morning, after the weekly Shabbat during Matzah. Yahusha presented himself as firstfruits, being the wave sheath offering himself. Now, as an intermission, just to explain this, we're finishing page 1 of a 4-page tract, which you can download and print on one piece of paper through a printer or on your printer, and it's available from lamblegacyfoundation.com or torazone.net. And it's also available on disc form, which you can get over 75 articles like this. This is about Yahuwah's redemption plan for his wife, Yisrael. If you're not of the tribes of Yisrael, you can engraft as a foreigner and become like the native born. Now these are called appointed times, or Moedim, for 2019. That's the Roman year. They're shadows of things to come for the body of Mashiach. Tradition insists that first fruits always be on Abib 16, the first month on the 16th, but this is not always the case, but it's true for this year. The count to Shavuot is 7 times 7 complete weeks, and it's determined by getting this correct. This offering, which is called first fruits, or bikurim, is something that was fulfilled by Yahusha when he resurrected, being the firstborn, which is what bikurim also means, from the dead. During the festival of matzah, unleavened bread, the high priest waved the first fruits of the barley harvest on the morrow after the Shabbat during that week. Yahusha became the wave sheath offering because the resurrection was the object, and the wave sheath was the shadowy outline that predicted it. At the seventh day of matzah is a Sabbath also. It's a day of rest from servile work. You can prepare food if it isn't on a weekly Sabbath. Now, the seventh day of matzah in 2019 occurs on the 21st day of the first month, which is sunset, April 25th, through sunset, April 26th. That is a period of 24 hours from sunset to sunset where we rest from servile work. The last day of matzah, and it commemorates the passing through the water of Yisrael and the drowning of the armies of Pharaoh. If you read the Song of Moshe in Exodus 15, it'll describe that for you. You may freely download a printable PDF of this article and many dozens of other studies from the website dedicated to training the future teachers, lamblegacyfoundation.com. Now, wave sheath, first fruits, they're the same meaning, but they foreshadow the firstborn from the dead. and that's Yahusha himself. Now the seventh day of matzah, we've covered that. Now we're going to move into Shavuot, which is going to be described as weeks. Shabuah is 1 week of 7 days. It's based upon the word Sheba, 7. Shabuah, or Shavuot, is Hebrew for weeks, or week. It is the 50th day, which is a rest day, and it's always on the first day of the week. It goes from sunset, June 8th, 2019, through sunset, June 9th, 2019. Shavuot commemorates the giving of Torah at Sinai, the wedding anniversary for Yahuwah and Yisrael, his bride. The Ten Commandments is read. This covenant is our marriage, the covenant of the Ten Commandments. From the morrow after the weekly Shabbat during matzah, we count 7 intact, true weeks to the morrow after the 7th Shabbat, the morrow being the 50th day, always falling on the first day of the week. Remember, Shabuah means week. The Yahudim calculate from Abib 16 in their count consistently to Shavuot. Yet we know Yahusha was in the tomb on Abib 16 and had not yet resurrected as firstfruits, or the wave sheath. Some years Abib 16 is firstfruits. Traditionally it's called Pentecost. That's Greek for count 50. Pentecost, count 50. Fulfilled as recorded at Acts chapter 2, when Torah was written on the hearts of the Nazarene, renewing the covenant, restoring us to favor with Yahuwah through the indwelling of Yahusha's Spirit. It is not a birthday, it is a wedding anniversary. Now the unfulfilled shadows ahead are included in this, and this article discusses that. In the 7th month, we have unfulfilled shadows. Yom Teruah, which means the day of the shout. It occurs as a rest day every 7th month, and it is on the first day of the 7th month. From sunset September 29th, 2019, through sunset September 30th, 2019. Now, Yom Teruah means day of the shout. We hear a shofar blown, and it's a shadow of the last trump. The coming of the day of the resurrection of the dead, when the voice of the great messenger will shout like a trumpet. This is the final warning of the coming harvest of the earth by the reapers, described at Ual, or Joel, chapter 2, Matthew, or Matthew, chapter 24, Yashayahu, or Isaiah 24, and the overall description is found in Psalm 91. On the 10th day of the 7th moon, or month, Yom Kippur, which means the day of the covering. It is the 10th day of the 7th month. Now, we're not talking about the Roman calendar. It hardly ever coincides with that. It occurs in 2019 at sunset October 8th through sunset October 9th. Yom Kippur, the day of the covering, is described at Acts 17, Psalm 91, and Ual, or Joel, chapter 2. It foreshadows the day of Yahuwah. Those sealed with the name of Yahuwah will be redeemed on this day, on the day of Yahuwah. Listed in the Book of Remembrance, Malachi 3, verse 16. This is the redemption of the living that follows the raising of the dead. The firstfruits, or wheat, who are alive at his return, will be changed in the twinkling of an eye, as the reapers remove the weeds by fire. We're talking about high temperature incineration. it will be Judgment Day, the harvest of the earth. Sukkoth comes a few days later on the 15th. After the 10th, when the reaping happens, the 15th day begins at sunset, and it's called Sukkoth on the 15th day of the month, of the 7th month. Sunset October 13th through sunset October 14th. Just read Leviticus 23, verse 33. It's called tents or booths, or the Latin is tabernacles. And it reminds us of Yeshua living in tents for 40 years, but looks forward to the consummation of the wedding feast at the return of Yahusha HaMashiach on the day of Yahuwah, following the great tribulation and judgment of the unrighteous. Yahusha was born on the first day of Sukkoth in a temporary dwelling. Now, at the end of the festival, there's a closing day, and we are to rest on that day. We rest on the first day of Sukkah and on the last day of Sukkoth. Sukkoth means tents. That's plural. And you build a sukkah, which is a singular. Now, the closing day of the festival is the 8th day, and it's sunset October 20th through sunset October 21st. It is the 22nd day of the 7th moon. It's the last great day. That's what they call it. Yahusha was circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. And this 8th day looks forward to a renewed creation where righteousness dwells. All hearts will be circumcised with a love for Torah. Colossians 2:16 and 17 say, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of a festival, or of a new moon, or of the Shabbat days, which are a shadow of things to come, for the body of Mashiach." Also, that needs to be balanced with Yeshayahu or Isaiah 8, verse 20. Some follow different new calendars that are being interpreted, such as the Enochian or the creation, and corrected interpretations involving sighted moons, which is carried, influenced. To unite with the older brother, we have to trust they know how weeks and festivals work, since there's been no change since Yahusha walked among us. Now, we do have these calendars also. If you'd like to order one, just go to torahzone.net. And I have a question to ask you. What is the purpose of existence? It's to love Yahuwah and love your neighbor. Now, here's another question. Was Mashiach, Yahusha, upset with the religious leaders of the day for keeping the Torah or for breaking it? Now, we don't have a religion. We have a reality. We follow him with our relationship. But if you want to consult the answer, Matthew 15, verse 3, Matthew 23, verse 3, Matthew 23, verse 28, Mark 7, and that's verse 8, 9, and 13, and Yehukanan or John chapter 7, verse 19. He was very upset with someone that was leading his people astray, because the teachers are the source of all the confusion and always will be. Now, here's another question. Is Mashiach upset with the religious leaders of today for keeping the Torah or breaking it? Just read the answer at Hebrews 13, verse 8. Okay, here's more about Passover, Firstfruits, Shavuot, and what a moon is, and what a month is. Shavuot, or is also known as Pentecost. There are 50 days between the resurrection of Yahusha and the outpouring of his Spirit on the day of Shavuot. The resurrection fulfilled Firstfruits, or Bikurim. 7 complete weeks later, he came into the 120 Nazarim on the day of Shavuot. the sign of Yuna, they call him Jonah. Yahusha was cut off from the living, and he fulfilled the Passover. The 3 days and 3 nights he was in the tomb validated his teaching authority, which he gave as a sign of Yuna. On the first day of the week, during the 7-day period of matzah, his body became the real wave sheaf offering, the bikurim, the firstborn from the dead. His resurrection was the reality, and the wave sheath was the shadow. Uikra, or Leviticus, chapter 23, verses 15 through 16, tells us to count up 7 complete weeks to the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, or Shabbat. That's 50, it'll be the 50th day. 7 times 7 plus 1. A real week, or Shabuah, is the 7-day pattern, never broken since creation. It's not just any grouping of 7 days. The count of 7 weeks to Shavuot begins with the first day of the week, from the morrow after the Shabbat during matzah, which is bikurim, the Hebrew word for firstfruits, and the same word is defined as firstborn. A child is metaphorically fruit. The morrow after the 7th Shabbat is the 50th day, also commemorating our marriage and anniversary. And your invitation to the wedding feast is to learn the festivals and engraft into Yisrael by following the way of Yahusha HaMashiach. And his appointments are shadows of things to come for his body, his redemption plan. Read Matthew chapter 22. Now, what is this day called Shavuot, or weeks? Well, Christians have been calling it Pentecost, a Greek word which means count 50. Yahusha is the bread of life, and on Shavuot his life joined to the minds of his followers in such a way that they received the power to guard and teach his Torah. He wrote a love for his Torah on the hearts of those who receive him. We are his witnesses that he is Elohim. See Yeshayahu, or Isaiah 43, verse 12. Now, the Hebrew word month and the Hebrew word for moon, they're different words. The Hebrew word for moon draws itself from the context. The word for the actual object that you see in the sky is called the Yerek. The city of Jericho was named Jericho, and it meant moon city. And it's based on the word moon. Yerek, it's the object that you see in the sky. But what is a month? A month is another word. The word month is a concept mostly referring to the temporal period it takes from the moon to renew itself from beginning to end. Kodesh, now that would be Hebrew word 2320, is spelled with a K sound, and it can mean new or it can mean month. And the concept of a renewed moon tells us we are in a new temporal period, measured by the light building up on the surface of the moon that we see. On the first day of a moon, there's 0 light, and 15 days later, the light completely fills the disk. That's how you know it's a full moon, and you can tell that it's the 15th. Now, if you start with a sliver, which is never seen in Scripture, that was picked up by the Karaites in the, I think it was year 767, by a rabbi called Anan, who was imprisoned with an Islamic teacher, and he saved his life by adopting that crescent moon. It's the sign of a Hindu deity, actually. Now, the Hebrew word that sounds like the word Kodesh, it isn't spelled the same, but it sounds exactly the same. It has a Q, or it's Hebrew word H6944, and it's a homophone. It sounds the same. And it means dedicated. You can pick these up at the audio or video or the printed article disc, or download these for free at lamblegacyfoundation.com or torazone.net. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.